Good morning, everyone, and welcome for another live video AMA. My name is Amandine Flachs, and today I am joined by Felix Wong. We are going to talk about his own experience. So Felix is joining us from Hong Kong. So it's the end of the day for him, but I'm super glad that he managed to join us today. Right now, we are live on many platforms, including LinkedIn, what else? YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. And that's about it. But wherever you are and wherever you're based, wherever the platform you're using right now to join us, please be sure to join us in the chat and ask your own question. You can also just say hi, but that's also the opportunity to ask your question to Felix. The video of today is going to be available on my YouTube channel, Amandine, so it's just youtube.com/Amandine Flachs. It's going to be available on Monday afternoon, and that's the main place to find out about my previous interviews and future live stream also. You know, it happens that some channel may have some difficulties sometimes, but YouTube is usually the channel where you can find everything, and it's usually working. But without further ado, I would like to introduce Felix. So Felix is head of growth at AngelHub and WHub, but he has been doing so many things. He has been involved in the startup ecosystem in Hong Kong and has been doing so many things. When I was reviewing his profile, I wasn't even sure what the best way to make the introduction. So I'm not going to try too much, and I'm just going to let Felix introduce himself.
Great, thank you so much, Amandine. It's my pleasure to be here. Super excited to spend time with everyone throughout the weekend. My name is Felix. I work full-time as AngelHub here in Hong Kong. We are startup ecosystem builders, also investing early-stage company across Asia and Europe. I spend most of my time in the past 5 to 7 years in the startup ecosystem across Southeast Asia, sometimes Europe, and it was a really long ups and downs roller coaster journey. And really appreciate everyone who come in, and I'm super excited to answer any questions.
Fantastic. Well, I see we already have a bunch of people in the chat, and I'd like to start by thanking Exit. I don't know if it's a generic thing or if it's the actual name of the person, but we just got offered some, I don't know what it is, some super hurt on Periscope. So that is good, and also that's a good indication that we are currently live on Periscope through Twitter, and that's super cool. I love it because that's my favorite channel. But anyway, so we recently talked on the channel about growth for startups and growth marketing, and that's, well, your job title at the moment. But you are working for AngelHub, which is a very different thing from usual startups. Like, you, for what I understand, I was on your website the other day, and for what I understand, you are kind of connecting startups with investors. So what's the difference between doing growth marketing for a startup and doing growth marketing for such a platform? Because I guess it might be a very different world, even if it's the same environment, and you're still in touch with founders and with the startup ecosystem. That's very different objectives you may have.
Sure, that's a great question, and I hope I have a golden answer. In short, AngelHub is actually a spin-off from a startup ecosystem builder here in Hong Kong called WHub, founded by two aspiring founders, French and German. And we have been doing ecosystem buildings, connecting different resources and startup ecosystem stakeholders, from entrepreneurs, co-working space, government agencies, tech parks, and all that. And our goal is pretty simple. Basically, we educate, share, and connect people. And 2 years ago, the founders noticed a huge opportunity to provide access to investment for early stage companies. And then founded AngelHub. And AngelHubs, we are a hybrid venture firm where we combine the mindset of venture capitals as well as equity crowdfunding. So people usually compare it with some notable platforms such as AngelList, Republic, Crowdcube, Outcrowd, Seeders, etc. But what makes us unique is we really want to provide professional investor access for startups in between pre-Series A's and also Series B stage plus. And people usually come to us because they can access to professional investors, high net worth individuals, as well as family offices easily. We help them save time. We vet the investors. We provide the right consultancy for startups. And ever since then, in just less than 1 year's operations, we have already contributed 5 investments in multiple sectors, such as e-commerce, esports, fintech, logistics, and robotics. And we have more exciting announced investments coming on.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. I was working myself on a project that used to do something quite similar in some way, and one of the major things that I was facing was to evaluate the deal flow, and getting the word out there about the project and the company is one thing, and when you're doing marketing I guess it's one of the key elements, but then the real success, the real measure of success is actually in terms of deal flow and the quality of the deal flow. Is it something that is part of your KPI, and do you have something to measure that? Because that's difficult to measure.
Absolutely. So because our firm is relatively new in the ecosystem, so that's why we rely a lot of support from the community. And thanks to the company previously created, that allow us to access a lot of high-profile venture capital, tier 1 accelerators, co-working space, and other startup communities. That's allow us to access more startups as well. We managed to get lots of deal flows from them because we built a trustworthy relationships before. And this is one of my KPI because I am also a power connector in Asia that bring along resources and recommend the right companies, organizations that we should build relationships. So imagine our day-to-day is like exchange contacts with other players. We attend other events, we attend demo days, and we also get recommendations from our investment committees. And that's how we maintain high quality deal flows coming in and out as well.
You mentioned also that there were an opportunity to do more to help startups get access to funding. So that means that there were a problem here. Can you tell us a bit more about the scene in Hong Kong and in Asia, and what really is problematic? What are the barriers for startups to get access to funding?
Totally. So Hong Kong gives people an impression where we are a financial city still, real estate market, a lot of international companies set up their headquarters in Hong Kong. But when we talk about startups, I would say our startup ecosystem, it's been around for, I would say, roughly 10 years. Looks like mature, but still there's a lot of areas to be developed. And speaking of the access of investments, we do have a lot of good programs and boutique VCs and family offices where they support early stage tech companies. But usually most startups start at Series A. When they look for raising monies beyond Series A, they often look for investors across Asia, Oceania, or even Europe and the States. Versus later stage investment, we have lots of private equities and family offices here in Hong Kong. Also, banks and corporates are really active to contribute later stage or even acquisitions. So there's a huge gap from Series A all the way to pre-IPO. And we're trying to capture the tail of Series A and pre-Series A so that we can provide both network to the communities, also capitals where they can bridge their rounds before they look for Series B, C, D, or above.
I think it's actually something that is quite common to many areas in the world where you need to reach the stage to unlock a different ecosystem of people and to kind of open new doors, like the stage where you have the people who are making the first checks. It's one bubble, but then you have a big gap between your pre-seed and your Series A. So raising seed and Series A is kind of tricky, and then well, it's a different, you talk about different things. You talk about numbers, you talk about growth. It's slightly different, but you have this gap at the early stage. Not necessarily for the first check, like getting a few thousand. You can find it with the angel community, but then when you're in the stage where you want to start raising seed or Series A, it's kind of more tricky, right?
Yes, and I can tell, just to build on top of what you mentioned, there's a joke here in Asia actually. So the Series A in Asia equals to the seed rounds of the state. I'm talking about the valuations and also the amounts people looking for. In Asia or maybe Hong Kong, when we talk about Series A, usually around 5 million US dollars, but in SA it could be just a pre-seed rounds. So there's a huge gap between how we measure the industries, how we evaluate startups, and how investors see the values and potentials of the startups as well. So I think we are getting there, and Hong Kong is a great place for people, for entrepreneurs to connect, and also as a hub for them to treat Hong Kong as a test market. If they need to raise further rounds, it's still good for them to connect other regions and neighborhoods such as Singapore, Indonesia, Australia, or maybe further along such as Central Europe.
It's a very large area, right? You're talking about Hong Kong, Singapore. It's well, for a European, sometimes it may seem small or close, but actually it's very different zones, different culture, and when we're talking about Asia, it's actually, well, lots of different countries, right? What does it mean to expand? Is it easy? I guess, is it easy to expand outside of Hong Kong and to neighbors countries? Because here in Europe, well, you have different languages and you have lots of differences in terms of culture, but physically it's quite close. It's quite small, right? So I'm in London, but I'm from Paris. I can really quickly go to, I don't know, Belgium or Germany in an hour or two. So even if there are some steps to expand there, because it's a very different country, different language, different everything, physically there is nothing that prevents me to really quickly go there and start doing business there.
So there is a 5-hour circle supply chain here in Hong Kong. So basically within 5 hours flight, you can basically visit almost every Asian countries and cities, except Australia and New Zealand. It might take slightly longer, but not really far. And I think there's a lot of things in common when we look at Asia Pacific versus Europe. In Asia, there's so many languages as well. So in Hong Kong, our primary language is Cantonese and English. And because we are super connected with our country, China, so there's Mandarin is also a primary languages, and lots of expats coming in just to learn the language as well. But when we look at Asia, it is so complicated. In Thailand, of course, you can speak English, but the majority is still Thai. In Singapore, the English, Chinese, Mandarin. And then when we look down to South Indonesia, there's more than, I don't know, like maybe an unofficial data, more than 50 languages and slangs. Each islands, they have their own culture and language. So it's super hard to tap into the culture and languages. It requires lots of time for people to learn, to access the market, and to build relationships. So we have this kind of contradictions. So like it's easy to visit the countries, it's easy to go there as a traveler, but to establish a business and build relationship, it might take some time and effort to find the right partners and understand the language. Or maybe some startups will just consider hire a huge team to dominate in their own languages and culture. So I would say it is still too early to say whether it is easy, but definitely there is a huge potential for people to explore because the labor cost is relatively low, and also people are super welcome technologies and new ways of running businesses. So that's the funny thing of Asia.
You've done a lot of work with the community, building communities and being involved in the startup community. What's the best way to get into this community? Is there one place to be? Do you need to go through co-working spaces and events, or is there other ways to get involved?
Let's talk about pre-COVID.
Yeah.
I would say in Asia, lots of communities and lots of international communities as well. Startup Grind, Angel Hack, Startup Weekend, they're super active. Agorize in Asia, super active as well. So basically, these communities capture all the way from youth, students, universities, working adults, or even people who are about to retire. So the age group is super huge, super diverse, and lots of communities are super active, running events, regular hackathons, tech conferences, and these programs are usually people go to. And we do have a lot of overseas replica as well. We have TechCrunch in China. We have Slush in China. We have the sister tech conference of Web Summit, Rise here in Hong Kong, and some other big players such as Tech in Asia, E27, Techstars, they're the biggest in Thailand, and also arguably Southeast Asia. So these conferences and players are providing access all the way to capture entrepreneurs, idea stage, scaling stage, growing stage, super welcome people to come. And these programs and events are basically super active. If I circle back to Hong Kong, back then we have events basically every evening. Almost every co-working space, they host their own meetup, drinking, business matching, pitching contests, and demo days every month from each accelerator. So it's really busy. You basically have to pick the events you want to attend. You can't really attend all the events. And if you're representing your company, you need to split your responsibility. So maybe I join this event, you join the other. So let's make sure we share our learnings, something like that.
I get that. Do you miss it? Because now with COVID, I guess things have changed, right? Everyone is trying to do their events online. Do you miss the events?
I miss events a lot. Although virtual events is exciting, but it's irreplaceable when we see, tech conferences, people seeing, each other face to face, handshake, have drinks, where you can really interact. This experience is irreplaceable, and I can't wait to get back to normal. I think it might take some time to get back to normal. Basically, it's not a job for one city or one country. It has to be a global phenomenon altogether. So yes, miss the old times, but for now, people are really creative as well. Try to provide content, creativities, videos, events, and all that, just to keep people updated and stay connected with the community.
Yeah. I also love that. I love to see how some events are trying to recreate the vibe and the serendipity you have chatting with people through, through having the main event, but also having some discussion chat on the side and some activities. So I find you have to be creative because it's not natural to just behave the same way online. But I would say I don't miss events the same way because, as you say, it requires some organization, right? You need to think about your time, and sometimes you end up in an event that didn't really worth it, and then sometimes you thought that an event wouldn't be that great, and you have one super cool contact from there. So I think for me, it's kind of a relief that I can focus on my own startup now. And then the day when the world restarts and events can happen again, then I think I will enjoy more the events because it will be the good time and not just something I have to do. So I'm quite curious. We talked a lot about how you love startups and the startup ecosystem. How did you get started? How did you get into it? Because you had to fall in love with the startup scene in some way.
Yes, I can talk about this for a week nonstop. So long story short, I was studying in the UK, and when I came back to Hong Kong, I spent 2 years working for a tech company as a data scientist. 2 years, it was amazing. until a friend invited me to join my very first hackathon here in Hong Kong. I have nothing, no knowledge, no prerequisites of entrepreneurship before I participated in events. But then the day when I show up, I see lots of creativities, passionate people who just want to spend their free time throughout a weekend, contribute an idea, solve problems, and try to build a solution in just a weekend.
Yeah.
I was inspired by the energy. And on Monday, I asked myself, do I want to come to the office again? And I was like, no, no, no. And then in just a short period of time, I just encouraged myself to participate more events in the evenings, buy books, read the Bibles like Lean Startup 0 to 1. I believe many entrepreneurs start with all these Bibles and reading material just to keep themselves excited. And it works. And in 6 months, I participate in another hackathon. Eventually, I found a team where we really share a lot of common languages, characteristics, and we decided to persuade the ideas we built from the hackathons. And in 3 months after the hackathons, we got our first customers where we can survive from being a ramen entrepreneur to lunchbox entrepreneurs. And I decided to quit my full-time job to be a full-time entrepreneur. So that's how I get started, and been participating in lots of programs, also as a community builder throughout my past 5 years. Is really enjoyable.
I love that. And I have now so many questions about it. So, first, you mentioned that you co-founded this company. So, what happened after that? Because it's always super exciting to be part of a hackathon. And well, I love the vibe, even if I've always been on the organization and organizator side. But still, you don't know those people you meet for a weekend, and you don't really know if on the long term you're going to be able to work with them, right? Because you don't know them personally. So what happened, and how did you go from, okay, we go together to an event, we meet there, to, okay, let's do that together, let's build this startup now?
That's the question. And so I think 80% of the reasons are like coincidence. When we joined force as a team, I basically know nothing like about the events and also the genders, and I just pick a team randomly. And eventually I got in touch with a team where by coincidence we graduate from the same grad school, same faculty, but different years. So immediately we have so many things in common, and they're looking for people, specific skills to join their team. And I sort of the person, like the persona they're looking for, as a data scientist, where they have group of marketers, business person, designers. They're missing people who can really build the algorithm for our first company, which is Cloudbreaker, where we help brands, marketers to find the right social media influencers on Instagram.
If I can just add, when you're at a hackathon, if you can find someone who can build it, you have to hold to them. Like, that's really the people you want to have next to you. It's someone who can build it, because in a weekend you need someone who can code and who can just create whatever you think about. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. That's really important. I do always see a lot of people over prioritize their idea through a hackathon. But what makes a hackathon exciting, and also what makes building product success in a short period of time is really the execution and how you can pivot quickly. So your idea doesn't really matter, to be honest. Ideas are cheap, and you really need to have a diversified team of people, talents who can really contribute the idea all together, understand their roles, and eventually build a product.
So what happened to this startup? Is it still up and running? So obviously you left since you now have another full-time job, but what happened there?
So I still have a strong relationship with the founding team. I spent 1 year as a founding member, also built the tractions throughout the year. It was really amazing journey. But in 1 year, I discovered my second passion, which is community building. And then it's kind of a struggle when you're a founder representing a company. Of course, you need to spend most of the time in your company, nurture your teammates, help the company succeed, raise fund, a lot of publications, communication where you need to be on the spot. But back then, I also contribute my time voluntarily, attend a lot of other community programs as a volunteer, hosting events. And that's how I sort of realized community building is something where I really want to spend more time rather than being a founder myself. And the way I started is all because of the community. It's all because there's people behind who host the hackathon, attract myself, attract my friend, and I eventually be part of the community. So I believe entrepreneurship education is really important, and I want to nurture more. So that's why I decided to join another company where they really focus on building communities, offer programs and knowledge network for budding entrepreneurs to be part of it. And I think this is even more meaningful compared with being a founder myself.
But you're still building project, right? Because you are a maker, and I saw on your Twitter and other profile that you have side projects anyway. So you're building communities, but you also are you still have this entrepreneurial mindset where you're also building other things and new tools and other stuff on the side. How can you do all that, not just in terms of time, but I'm actually asking more about in terms of image, like how can people understand what your focus is? Because I'm in the same situation where I have my startup, but I used to be super involved in the startup ecosystem, and I still do things on the side, but I see so many people get confused about what's your main thing and what's the side thing, and it's sometimes requires some explanation, even though I try to be as clear as possible on my social media. It can confuse really quickly people on what you're up to.
That's totally true. And short answer, my full-time job is still my priority because the huge responsibility with the team. We do really want to see the company succeed. So I still spend my majority of my time in daytime for the company. But at the same time, the reason why I build side projects and keep myself learning all the time is because I'm so hungry for knowledge. I'm so hungry for extra connections. And to be an entrepreneur, a couple years ago, I realized it's really important to have your system and also a way to keep yourself motivated and productive. So I have created some sort of system to help myself motivated. Basically, every day there's a thing. So on Monday, I only do one or two things, either for the company or for myself. So because I spend most of my time doing growth and also looking at the funnel, so you can imagine something like on Monday, I focus on acquisitions. On Tuesday, I focus on retentions, for example. And I try to break down my schedule as small as possible per projects, per task, so that I can see progress. And also I don't have to give myself excuse. Let's say if my colleagues ask me, can you please generate 100 leads for this week? My answer is usually yes, but my ways of doing is in the morning, I do 5. In the afternoon, I do another 5. And before I go and do another 5. So on Monday, I can complete 15. And then throughout a week, I complete 100. Instead of sitting here 2 hours just to find 100 lists, I'll be freaking out if I do it in this way. So I try to break down as much as possible so I see the progress and I can get the task complete within the given time. And speaking of side projects, why I do side projects is because of 2 major reasons. First of all, building side projects allows me to fill in certain gaps where I cannot really fulfill in my full-time job for other capacity. And the thing is, when you realize a problem you really want to solve, but you cannot utilize your existing resources, either from your job, from your academic backgrounds, or other ways of knowledges, you got to do something to solve the problems. I hate to see a problem sitting here and no hope. I really want to contribute a problem and be the person to solve the problem. And some of my side projects are actually tapping into these ego, where I want to solve something, provide access for people, help people to succeed, and I build a product, and people happy, I'm learning something, I'm learning new tools, I'm learning new knowledge. And the second reasons I do side project is I can basically test everything, let's say growth hacking, before I apply to my full-time job. So
Yes.
in my side project, I test whatever I like. If it fails, it's still on me. If it succeeds, still on me. But at the same time, I can apply in my full-time job so that I can really execute something, understand the risks, obstacles, and the opportunity before I spend more resources and time and investment. And I can also inspire my team. Hey, I test something in my side project. It works. Maybe it works for our job as well. Let's try it all together.
I guess also in a side project, the advantage is that you can do it quickly. You can do it in a smaller scale or more controlled environment. Like I was chatting with a founder 2 weeks ago, two founders, and they were building a cybersecurity startup. And it's cybersecurity. It takes time. You need to build the technology, and then you need to talk to the clients. And so one of them on the side, he built a small business during COVID. And he was delivering plans and like being an intermediary between people who have lots of supply and people who wanted to buy. And he told me the same. He told me that it was a good way for him to experiment, and it made him better at his job because he could hear with this side project see really quickly the results of what he was doing. And I completely get that. Have you ever thought about one day making one of these side projects a full-time project, or has you always been thinking, no, that's a side project, I maybe automate things so it just stays a side project even if there is suddenly lots of demand, or even if there is an opportunity to grow it bigger, I want to keep it a side project?
I get these questions quite often. I try to have an FAQ as well. And in short, I think it's in between maybe and no at the moment, because I kind of enjoy having a side project capacity where I can really whenever I want to do something, I spend time. Whenever maybe if I think this idea it will not be working anymore, I can just get rid of it. No harm. The good thing of having side project is it's really about the motivations, as we mentioned earlier. And I enjoy spending time, wake up in the early morning, like 6, 7, contribute my side project. It could be a small bug fix. It could be putting up content. It could be update the logo. And this is not something I can really make fast and gut decisions in my full-time job. And I believe having a side project motivations help myself, first of all, stay motivated. Secondly, test experiments. And at the same time, to fulfill my entrepreneurial mindset, basically. So having a series of side projects does help myself growth, learn new things, and develop anything I want.
Talking about side projects, I know that you're a big fan of no-code tools, and I'm wondering. So I saw on Twitter a thread that you created, and you were talking about tools. And I know that one of your latest side projects, you initially created a website, and then you changed the tool you use, so you recreated it completely. And when you explained it on Twitter, you said something. You said, after all, a tool is just a tool. The most important thing is content and execution. So what do you think is the key element of the execution for a side project or any project to be a success? If it's not about what you use to build it, and if it's all about execution, what's the key point?
First of all, really thanks to the no-code community. And the no-code communities emerged and been rapidly growing in the past couple months. Yeah. But if we circle back, no-code's been, the concept of no-code has been exists for a decade. Basically, is something, maybe a software, maybe a tool to help people build anything without a single line of code. If we look back to Wix, WordPress, Xanga, I'm not sure if anyone right here from the Xanga generations, but yes, a tool where you can just hit the keyboard, fill in content, upload your images, and hit publish, and you see the front end. And that's the beauty of no-code tools. No-code tools help you build something, drag and drops, edit a minimal amount of effort, and you can see something, either websites or applications. And this is part of executions. And in the past, if we want to build a tech companies, you basically need to recruit developers, designers. If you are working on a complicated project, you might need front-end, back-end, database management, UI, UX designers, and also someone who can scale the company. And today's, the way we run a company, the way we market our products, more or less the same than 30 years ago. It's just the channels are different and faster and more options. But the way we built a product, it's been changing so much. A lot of tools coming here to help people without technical backgrounds, where you can execute your ideas by using these tools without extra support of developers. Maybe you need in the future when your company scale, you might need a more sophisticated security database and also server structure. Then you might need to look for a developer. But just to have a quick execution and minimum viable products, lots of no-code products out there can do, I would say, arguably over 80% of your ideas can be executed by using just one or two no-code tools.
What's your favorite one? Like if you had to choose one, maybe the most versatile, the one that you can do a wider range of things with.
It's a tough question. Don't mimic pick, but Notion is one of my favorite. I think it's still a debate whether Notion is a no-code tool, because the majority of users, they use Notion as a productivity tool, database, a collaborative workspace with their team. But their functionalities allows a lot of people to publish a website, a blogs, portfolio instantly by just all the building blocks fundamentally provided by Notion. And I'm not sure if any audience right here hear and watch the interviews of Ivan Chow, the founders of Notion, long time ago. He actually started Notion because he wanted to build a web builder, no-code web builder, originally. Mm-hmm. And he pivoted into the tool what we see right now. And now people use the tool as a website builder, because these tools allow us to unlock our creativities. Lots of users, they also create their own plugin, open source resources, so many tutorials and templates to help people build a website in no time. So I have extra love towards Notion, and I do have 2 projects built with Notion as well. Secondly, I would say Card. Card is another web builder where people can build a website based on Markdown. Simple building blocks, edit your tags, have your own design system, images, and integrations with some service providers we often use, like emails, plugins, payment, some e-commerce related applications as well, everything on Card. And these tools are amazing, and they are powering a lot of makers to build their own landing page, websites, working portals, and even to automate their processes.
And I think one of your latest projects has been launched on Product Hunt this week, right? How did it go? How did you prepare for that? And did it have the effect you expected?
Yes, I think the result is totally out of my expectation. It was amazing. First of all, thank you so much for the community. And eventually it was actually published in late April during the most crazy and peak period of COVID. I started Venturelist because based on one simple hypothesis, a lot of startups are dying. many of them, they require bridge financing to survive. And as an entrepreneur, venture builder, and also used to work for Accelerator, I have already collected lots of networks and informations about how to find access and select the right investors and programs for startups and funders. So in April, I just want to open source my brain, and I created a landing page with an open to access Airtable where people can select, find, and filter the destinies investors with a focus on Asia. But I usually recommend people to also pay some attention to the investors in Asia as well, because they are actually willing to invest companies out of Asia as well. In Europe, in States, there are any startups actually backed by Asians venture capitals and big companies here in Asia. So I opened a database. It was amazing, and in just a week of since I launched back then, I have already collected over 2,000 readers. It was great. I think it does the job, but I think that's not enough. So in September, I come across Mikapat, another famous Nocode communities where they started a 30 days challenge. So basically in 30 days, you have to build something from scratch and launch in 28th of September. It's not really 30 days, 28 days. So I need to build something from scratch. So I was like, okay, what should I do? And I try not to have another fresh idea and test the market again. So I'm a bit sneaky to rebuild my previous project, which is VentureList 1.0. And I made use of September, the whole month, to rebuild the whole VentureList and eventually become the 2.0 right now. And I published the product hunt campaign just this first day. Surprisingly, I was part of the top 10. Really thanks again to the communities. And from what I see today, the upvote is still climbing. So it was really cool. And when I look at the analytics, it was just unbelievable. So really appreciate all the effort from the community. People were sharing the products. And I'm glad the resources of startup investment tools and content are helping people to understand more how to navigate the fundraising mechanism.
Well done to you. So at the end, did you manage to stick to the 30-day challenge? Did you manage to do it in 30 days?
So yeah, I did in 27 days, published the product right before the deadline. I also managed to receive over hundreds people who signed the waiting list. I sent them email, welcome, and it's live and all that, and the feedback was really positive. And now the product is keep getting subscription. My notification is non-stop right now, so I think it's a good sign where people like the product and they just can't wait to see the next update. So right now, I'm spending my time to collect feedback, listen to my users, and see what we should add values on the product.
That's great. I have to say, I tried recently to join a 30-day challenge to kind of do the same. I built an application for my phone, like a news aggregator, and I think I went a bit too deep in the tech because I can't really do anything with it anymore. Like, it works, but it's not good, and I'd like to publish it. But I thought during this challenge I could kind of redo it, either entirely redo it with no-code tools. But I really suck with no-code. Like, I can't do anything with that. And that's annoying, but I tried, and coding it myself, I reached the level where I'm not good enough. I don't have the skills because I'm not a developer. So I asked for some help, but now I can't really redo it or improve it because it's already too complex for me. So I feel stuck, and I think I'm going to fail because it's supposed to be for the entire month of October. So yeah, well done to you though for launching and also having such success on Product Hunt. Product Hunt is a really good tool to get the word out there, especially internationally, if it fits, the community, and it's also a great way to get great feedback.
Yeah, totally. The fun fact is every Tuesday I review all the product hunt products from the previous week. So I basically spend 30 minutes every Tuesday to review, to try, to upvote, and get connected with new makers.
What's
And
the
I've
main
been
learning?
doing.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah, please. Main learning, yes, that's what I'm trying to say. So I think my main learning is how people organize a campaign and what problems they see, and how they manage to take an idea all the way to something where you can see on product hand, ready to use, and they have basically no fear of giving ideas and the solutions to the public. And I think that's also the beauty of execution as well. You have to tell the public, you have to launch your product anyway, and product hunts allow us to connect these community, early testers, and people who are really willing to contribute or even pay, become your users. So it's definitely a great place for people to launch a product. I do see people, most of the products on Product Hunt are like digital products, like apps, webs, or technical products. But sometimes I do see people who publish bikes, appliance, gadgets, books as well. So it's definitely an inclusive community where they allow lots of makers from different backgrounds to just make use of the network, publish your product, test the water, and at the end of the day, we are all human. We are not just spending our time on digital products. We have to live as well. We have to eat. We have to travel. So any products within these domains are definitely welcome.
Yeah. As soon as you have a community, right, what brings all those makers together is the fact that everything is just all focused on the community aspect. I just want to take a few minutes to say hi and thanks to a bunch of people on the chat, especially Metamurai, who just resubscribed on Twitch. So that's also a good opportunity to say that if you want to support the channel, you can always subscribe on Twitch. There are also other ways to support the channels, but if you are an Amazon Prime subscriber, you have one sub free per month, so check it out. Even if it's not for my channel, just check it out. Thanks a lot, Metamurai, for that. And we have a message from Luke on the chat. Actually, I saw it earlier, but I wasn't sure when was the best moment to mention it. So Luke said that you may want to check out Simon Squibb, someone who's from the UK, who's in Hong Kong for 20 years, running startups. I don't know. You say yes, so I guess
Yeah, buddies.
Okay. Oh, good. Okay. So Luke was happy to make an introduction, but you already know each other. So small world, right? You're in Hong Kong. I'm in London. We're talking to Luke, who is also in the UK, mentioning someone from the UK in Hong Kong. But you already know each other. I was like, it's a bit like when you're the only one from one country into a party and someone asks you, oh, do you know this person? And you're like, well, no, it's a big country. But here we are. It's a small world at the end.
Yeah, small world. I would love to get connected with Luke as well. Simons was a pioneer in the Hong Kong startup ecosystem who started Nest. And my team and I had the pleasure to have him as a speaker just a couple months ago in our own tech conferences. So small world, definitely. So can't wait to extend the conversation.
I love that. And we're live right now on many platforms, and so anyone could check in and come say hi. And by the way, ask your question, because that's the best time right now to ask your question. But still, we managed to make real connections. It's funny how a few months ago or even before, some people couldn't really understand Twitch, or people just joining other live stream and just the idea of live streaming. But that's the thing, we may be from different part of the world, we're still all connected all together right now, talking about the same topic and sharing our passion for startups, which is super cool, and that's super powerful too. So we talk about many things, and you have done many things. Something that we haven't really talked about is that apart from your current job, from your side project, you also have been working at Techstars at some point. Like, you've been really doing a lot of things. You're also a mentor. What's your biggest, I would say, advice for other startup founders or makers, just to put the right foundation into the project? Like, like you mentioned lots of tools, and also because your day job is all about startup growth. What's your main thing that you think startups or entrepreneurs should be starting doing right now, and your main advice for them?
Sure, I think these advice and entrepreneur philosophies actually come from Techstars. That's what I learned a lot from my previous company. And in short, don't stop learning. That's how I followed the motto. So basically, how I make use of this philosophy is every day I just try to give myself some time to learn, to read, to get connected with people, and at the same time apply what you learn, inspire the people around you, and eventually you can see a compound effect where yourself's growing, you have more opportunities, you have more appreciation from people as well. So really don't stop learning, even though if you are specialized in maybe one or two domain, look for the third. If you come from a business background where you have some idea you want to start and build products, don't wait and learn no-code tools, maybe coding as well, and build up your own portfolios of a variety of skill sets. So 4 years ago, I had a similar situations. I have an idea I want to build where require lots of UI UX design, and I do have a lot of great designers around me, but I can't really find a person or maybe comfortable to work together because it requires some effort and commitment as well. So I was like, let's learn UI UX design, and I decided to pick up the skill on first day of the year. So that's what I usually do every day of the first year. So I pick up the skill. The way I do is basically just read Medium. So every day I read blogs, articles from professional designers, and I've been doing this 3 months nonstop. And eventually I decided to do more. Let's practice. And then I subscribe Sketch, novels, and visions, and that's how I get my hands dirty. Really do stuff, learn something, apply, and now in just 3 years after a self-taught UI UX design, I'm also teaching at UI UX bootcamp as well as a self-taught designer. So it was a really nice experience. I have no regret to pick up the skill, and all the products I'm running right now are designed by myself. So I think this story is basically re-emphasize why you shouldn't stop learning.
It's funny how you say you don't have any regrets learning this new skill. I don't think that anyone can have really regrets or the feeling of having wasted your time. Like you can have a feeling of having wasted your time when you stay in your couch and don't do anything. But learning, I think no one should ever feel bad about learning something new or spend the time to learn to do something. Like it's something you always find a way to use, and as you say, being able to then share with other people what you've learned. I think it's also another step in the learning process where you put your thoughts together, like, okay, you've learned things and you are able to do it now, but what about sharing with other and teaching other to do it? That's a complete other level of understanding of what you're talking about, right? So I love the fact that now you're actually teaching.
Yes, exactly. If you learn something, you know something, you are good at these things, you should always share your skill. You should always give away your knowledge. And just the same concept of what you see from school. Why you're in front of your lecturers, because he or she spent many years in her own domain, and now she can be a lecturer to educate the class. Same concept in the business ecosystem. If you're really good at something, try to find an opportunity to inspire people who want to access this knowledge. Do not keep the knowledge in your head all the time. And when you educate other people, when you share your knowledge, it's also another test to yourself whether you really understand the skills. So there's some quick tips could be tweeting daily, write some blogs, newsletters, and just to showcase your own domain and create your own audience. And eventually you can see people who really need these skills and will we really appreciate the way you share. So it's learning, sharing, and connecting. It's really, really important.
When you get started learning something new, what's the best way to find the best resources? Do you ask around? Because I was in this situation a couple of weeks ago. I was trying to do some tag manager and like set up some tools for my own website, and I was stuck. I couldn't understand. Everything I was finding were just too complex and not teaching me the basics. And I asked on Twitter, and luckily Ruben, who I had on the stream a few weeks ago, he shared with me a couple of links, and I was like, okay, let's try to do that step by step. What's the best way to just get started into something new and just find the right resources for your right level of understanding?
So in the beginning, I do discover and find lots of resources, platforms to keep myself updated, especially in my own domain, let's say growth. And because growth is a huge spectrum that includes digital marketing, creativity, building products, psychology, data analysis, and all that, you need to at least be a master in your own domain. So because the industry is changing, there must be new knowledge and new incident coming in. So you need to keep updated in your own industry, first of all. Secondly, if you decide to pick up second and third skills, try to find the communities and also resources from those areas as well. So the way I keep myself accountable is every article I read or maybe newsletters, I will make an archive on Airtable, and I will make sure myself to categorize the piece of content like tag. Okay, for example, these growth hacking blogs is focused on customer acquisitions. From which products is for what is good for reference, etc., etc. And then I have another weird habit where whenever I finish an article, I will make sure myself to connect the author on LinkedIn, on Twitter, just to start a conversation. It could be something like, hey, Amandine, I read your article about gaming in AI. I really appreciate your effort. I like your tips, but I'm not sure about certain things. Can we extend a conversation? 120% the author will reply and connect me. And that's how I learn, grow my network all together. And I found this practice really useful because I can build a stronger relationship with the author that I admire. And also we are exchanging knowledge in parallel. So it's definitely another ways of learning in person.
I really like the idea. I started myself. Well, I've been sharing articles and news that I find interesting either on my Discord channel or on Twitter. And usually on Twitter, what I've been doing is tag the author, just so they know that some people are resharing, some people enjoy it, and if someone has a question, people can reach out to them. And I think it's surprising, but sometimes people just get back to you, just says thanks, or it actually starts a conversation too. So I think that lots of people think that when you create a piece of content, you're some kind of, I don't know, professional author, or, no one can really reach out to you. But surprisingly, when you actually do additional research, usually those people are super approachable, and you can have a conversation and it's completely fine. And it's not because they're doing YouTube videos or because they're doing lots of articles or having a book or whatever, that means that you can't just talk to them at all. Like, it's not the case.
Exactly. I'm not sure if in the audience if Blake is here. So a couple months ago, I get connected with Blake. So basically, he wrote a blog about data science in marketing and products, something like that. And I got connected with him on LinkedIn, and we started conversations, and that's how we exchanged contacts. And he is the engineer of PlayStation. So I was like, wow, connect with a data scientist and engineers from PlayStation. I'm sure there's a lot of interesting conversations going on.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
have a lot of examples like this, like get connected with the author, the creator of videos, and eventually we become a great relationship. We exchange contacts, and that's how I maintain this practice. And I've been doing this nonstop in a couple of years.
I love that. That's super interesting example, and it works. That proof that it works. We've been talking for about an hour, so I don't want to take too much of your time. But thank you so much. Is there anything else that you wish I asked you about, or anything that you want to add before we wrap it up?
No, thank you so much for putting this up. I think we cover lots of
Yes.
topics, and all your questions and also questions from the audience, Luke, and all that are really thoughtful. So really appreciate. And I would definitely suggest all the audience right here to stay connected, follow Amadine's on different channels, and do not hesitate to reach out.
What's the best channel to reach out to you? Is there a platform where you're the most active on?
Twitter and LinkedIn.
Okay.
If you are interested in food and cooking, you can follow my Instagram as well.
Yeah, I do the same. I think if some people expect lots of business stuff on my Instagram, they would be disappointed.
Yes.
Well, thanks a lot, Felix, for your time. It has been such a pleasure, and I have to say, when I was preparing the interview, I was so interested by everything you've been doing, and we could have actually spent the entire time talking just about growth for startups, or the startup ecosystem, or side project, Nocode. Like there were so many topics, and I actually preferred to just touch base a bit on all those topics rather than just deep diving into one. But that was so interesting. I took some notes, and I'll make sure to add all the tools, all the things that we mentioned on the description of the video when it's going to be available on YouTube on Monday, around Monday afternoon, my time, so Monday afternoon from UK time. But anyway, thanks a lot everyone for joining. A bunch of interesting stuff on the chat, and also a few people who subscribed, followed, but also offered to connect, which is always super nice. And also a super hurt on Periscope, which I have to say I need to check out what the super hurt are, because I've been using Periscope, but I haven't really been deep diving into Periscope. Like I know more about Twitch and YouTube than Periscope live stream. So I need to check out what it is, but thank you very much for the person who gave us some super hurts. I'm
Great.
going to let you all enjoy the weekend. Thanks a lot for your time. We are going to be live again in 2 weeks as usual, and we will have more startup founders, entrepreneurs, and people from the startup ecosystem in the coming weeks. And if there's any topics you'd like me to cover, or any type of entrepreneurs you'd like me to get on the stream, just reach out on Twitter, where you can always find me, and I'll be happy to find some guests that fits your criteria. Anyway, thanks a lot everyone, and I wish you all a great weekend ahead. Bye.